Well, hello, chapter leaders. I am Renee Tamala, the Senior Field Representative in North Dakota, and I am joined here by the familiar faces of our Governmental Affairs team, our Directors of Conservation Advocacy, Jim Inglis and Bethany Erb. And we now have the addition of a new face with us today. So I would like to say welcome to the PF and QF team to Andrew Schmidt, our Manager of Government Affairs. Andrew, please let our chapters know a little bit about you, how you got here, and some of the things that you're working on.
Sure. Thanks, Renee, and hi, everyone. So again, my name is Andrew Schmidt. I just joined the Government Affairs team about a month ago here. And like Bethany, I'm based in the Washington, D.C. area. And while I only just came on board recently, I will say I'm no stranger to the great work being done by PFQF members and staff, as I've had the opportunity to work with a few different wildlife conservation organizations in the past several years, including the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, Ducks Unlimited, and most recently the Conservation Fund. So in those roles, I got to know and work with both Jim and Bethany and a lot of folks on the Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever team on a range of conservation policy issues, most often related to the programs in the Farm Bill, but also those under the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and Forest Service and others. So as I said, I live in Northern Virginia with my wife and two little boys. Couldn't be more excited to be on the team here, and really looking forward to meeting a lot of the folks that might be viewing this out around the country. So yeah, thanks for that, and again, hi everyone. So I think with that, I'm supposed to move into kind of my first update, and that's going to be on the appropriations and government funding process, which I'm sure is an exhilarating start to any update around the holidays. So on December 2nd, folks may have read in the news that Congress passed and the president signed a continuing resolution that keeps the government funded through February 18th of next year. So this will be at funding levels set almost a year ago under the previous administration and Congress, but because Congress did not come to an agreement on full spending for the coming year, the CR, the continuing resolution, keeps that in place as a stopgap solution. So with that solution in place, appropriators now need to continue their work towards reaching agreement on a full year spending deal. The House passed most of their spending bills in July, and the Senate bills are still in process. There are a lot of differences between the two chambers bills and between the parties on funding issues. But so the question remains whether Congress will be able to agree on a full year spending bill in February, or if they're going to need to do another stopgap. That said, if Congress, and hopefully Congress, is able to come to an agreement on a full year bill, many of the priorities that Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever has will be well positioned in both the House and Senate bills, as both of those proposals have included increases to a lot of our top priority programs, including conservation technical assistance under the Department of Agriculture's Natural Resources Conservation Service, funding for the North American Wetlands Conservation Act, migratory bird joint ventures, Partners for Fish and Wildlife, and a number of others that again we will watch year in and year out and participate in and partner with the government agencies on getting that funding out the door. So it's really good news for our priority programs, again, if Congress is able to come to an agreement, and whether that will happen remains to be seen, and we will stay up until midnight the night before funding runs out to find out the answer. So stay tuned on that. So with that, I'll actually kick it over to Jim to talk more about some of the Farm Bill programs that we're working on.
Hello, everybody, and great to be with you here today. So overall on the Farm Bill conservation side, FSA gave us some good news here this fall by showing that they enrolled about 5 million acres of CRP, Conservation Reserve Program. And that's something that we really need to celebrate, because that's the first net increase in acres that we've had since 2007. So as many of you know, the acres have declined over the past 13 years or so, and that gives us kind of our first bump. FSA also earlier just this week here announced some changes to the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program, or CREP, and that program has been around for a number of years. And we believe it's going to give more flexibility to the state and other partners to be able to enroll more acres and do some possibly some new programs or expanding current ones. So as an example, the South Dakota James River CREP is one that's important to a lot of our members, and that one also has public access associated with it. So overall, across the country, there are 34 CREP projects in 26 states. So it's been a tool that we've used for a number of years, and we appreciate USDA making those changes there. As far as a general sign up, when we could see some more acres come in, by Farm Bill law, USDA has to host a general sign up each year. So as in the past, we can expect to sign up early 2022 here, and that would be open across the country. There's also still some continuous programs like the State Acres for Wildlife or SAFE. And so overall, we view that USDA is getting the CRP and the other conservation dollars out the door and implemented on the ground. Another example is the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, Working Lands for Wildlife, those types of things we're seeing a lot out there. As far as what's going to happen in Congress next year, the 2018 Farm Bill will need to be reauthorized in 2023. So we definitely see the Senate and the House Ag Committees having hearings here next year, and those will happen both in DC as well as likely out in the states and the districts out there. So be looking for that information to be able to provide comments on the program. Another thing that you've likely seen in the news is the reconciliation package. So this was something that the House had passed here about a month ago, and the Senate didn't reach an agreement here in the last week before they went on recess. But what we have been watching on that is there's significant funding in the conservation title, or the conservation program, let's say upwards of $28 billion, and which essentially doubles the Farm Bill conservation title. And so we're just keeping an eye on that. We'll see if the Senate's able to come to an agreement into next year, and that we can see some more funds in there. So with that kind of update, or that's from my updates, I'll turn it over to Bethany.
Thanks, Jim, and hi, everyone. It's really nice to be here. And thank you for joining us for the end of the year Government Affairs wrap up. So I'm going to talk about just two things, follow up on kind of what Jim was talking about major spending packages. The one that did pass is the infrastructure package, and that passed in November, $1.2 trillion, and there was quite a bit of conservation money in there. Couple things that are interesting to us, $350 million for wildlife migration corridors and wildlife crossings, $250 million to the U.S. Forest Service for roads and trails to increase and improve access and availability. So those are a couple of cool things. The infrastructure package, as Jim said, the BBB, the reconciliation package has not passed. We'll see what happens in the beginning of the year if some of the pieces will be picked up. But lots of money out there for conservation right now, and it's been a pretty exciting time for us to be involved with these measures as they came together on Capitol Hill. The other thing that we've been following and working very closely is the North American Grasslands Conservation Act. And I want to say a big thank you to all of our volunteers, chapter members, and staff that joined us in September and after September to call Congress, to write about this issue, to talk about it, and ask Congress to implement the act. So we have made a lot of progress. We had over 50,000 emails and calls into Congress that week, and it definitely got people's attention. So we've begun working with Senator Ron Wyden's staff. He's from Oregon, in the language of the bill. And so, as we've talked before, we're asking for $350 million a year, every year, to create a North American Wetlands Conservation Act-like program, NACA-like program. Trying not to use acronyms here, except for grassland to be utilized on grasslands and sagebrush ecosystems. So slightly different from Farm Bill programs, but complementary, can be used for habitat improvement projects, some easements. And anyway, we're getting pretty close to some legislative language. Senator Wyden's office is worked very closely with our coalition, and we're confident that we will have legislative language in 2020, hopefully the early part. So wanted to give our members an update on that, thank them again for their contributions, and stay tuned. There will be more calls to action on this in 2022. With that, I'll pass it back to Renee.
Wonderful. Thank each one of you for the updates. It is no secret that you guys have been very busy, working tirelessly. So on behalf of our chapters and our members, our wildlife and our habitat, thank you guys very much for all the work that you do. I just have a couple of wrap-up questions for you. The first of which is about climate policy. So can you tell us how or why climate policy matters to the mission of Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever?
Sure. Thanks, Renee. That's a really good question. We have written a 3-part series over the past 9 months. I think Jim might have a copy of the magazine. And our 3rd part should have just arrived in your mailbox recently. And so when we went into this new Congress and new administration, we had to consider what our policy options were going to be and to do our absolute best to achieve mission for pheasants and quail. That's what we do, is we provide, pursue our mission. And so we recognized that there was an opportunity within the climate policy discussion to talk more about the importance of grasslands, about the carbon capture potential, about the other environmental or ecosystem services, including wildlife, but beyond wildlife, whether it's soil or water quality, et cetera. Those elements of the work that we always do and have always done are increasingly important in the public policy sphere. So we decided to enter this discussion, talking to Congress and to our members, and letting folks know that the work that we've done for grasslands fits right into the carbon discussion, the climate policy discussion, that we would only be supportive of any measure that was voluntary and that had to be compatible with our mission. So we'll never, as we've said before many times, you'll never see us endorsing or supporting anything that's non-voluntary. So voluntary, landowner-driven incentive programs, many of which are the things like our Cherish program, CRP, that we already do. They fit right into this discussion. So we've outlined it a little bit better in our 3-part series. Again, you can find the 3rd part in the magazine that just came out, and they will all be up on the website pretty soon if you'd like to read more.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Bethany. Final question for you folks. The Legislative Action Fund contributions from chapters are absolutely vital to accomplishing all of the topics you guys just covered. How else can chapters elevate PF and QF's advocacy work? What can chapters or members that want to do more beyond LAF contributions, what can they be a part of in the next year?
Sure, I'll take that one, Renee. So again, we can't thank the chapters and the leaders and the volunteers for that support of the LAF program, the Legislative Action Fund. It helps us be engaged, and we continue to be engaged, even though we weren't able to travel as much. But actually, last week, then we were able to meet in DC to have a few quick meetings, and we are continuing to have meetings with the staff and the members of Congress, even if it's virtually or by phone. Those are still happening, and we still are reaching out to make sure that our priorities are front and center, moving forward. The other way that we can get involved, and just like what Bethany mentioned, I mean, that call to action that we did as part of that Grassland Coalition was just incredible, to have over 50,000 calls and emails and those kind of things. We need to continue that type of pace when we have things come up, and expect to see that from us again as we get into Farm Bill reauthorization, and and also when we get some more momentum here on the Grassland Act, and continue to move that, as we have hearings about the proposals and the ideas there. So again, that grassroots support is so impactful. And it doesn't have to be into DC either. I mean, the members of Congress have home states and home towns back in the districts and the states. So engaging them there, we may see town hall type meetings or the ability to, engage in these farm bill hearings, as well as we've seen historically when anytime we're reauthorizing a farm bill. So any of those things are just fantastic and much needed when that time comes.
Perfect. I know that our chapter volunteers are ready and willing when called upon. So thank you for condensing all of this very dense policy topics in a way that it's a little bit more digestible for us. So thank you for your work, keeping our mission relevant where it matters the most, and making a lot of good things happen for our mission. So thank you all, chapter leaders. If you ever have any questions about what we're doing, we have a landing page on the website where you can read all of the updates. You can take a peek at the magazines that come out, or feel free to reach out to your regional representative, and we can get you the information that you need. But thank you all. Happy holidays, and here's to a great 2022.